albums like To Pimp a Butterfly.
Top 10 albums of the decade.
Boo. Did I get you? If I did, then be sure to hit the subscribe button. If not, Long Playing Man Tantano here will get you in your sleep. A decade. It's always been weird to me that we've categorized eras of music into 10 years because there's all sorts of sounds and experiments and all kinds of trends that just, it seems weird to clump them all into a decade. I mean, to me it feels like a not very useful term at best. I mean, come on, Nirvana, Celine Dion, the birth of mainstream rap and hip-hop, and Barbie Girl all clumped together into the 90s, as if the 90s had a really specific sound. That's why I've always been against this sort of like clump music into specific decades, as if the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, they all had the same concurrent sound and trends cut by the beginning and end of each decade. But gosh darn it, I really don't like how 2020 is starting. The 2020s are shaping up to be a chain reaction of just non-stop bleh. So, but feel like I want a taste of the past. I want to go back to the 2010s, because the 2010s were my teen years decade, where I got to figure myself out and find out who I am, and not to mention what kind of music I like, because back then, you ask me, what's your favorite album? I'll say 1989 by Taylor Swift, and I'm not even gonna apologize. So before we get started, I just wanted to say that this is just my facts. It's facts. It's not my opinion. This is all facts. If you're a boat, then you'll definitely want to dock, because the first album on this list is Harbor by Tompa Beats. I think that this album is something that may not be on a lot of people's list, but I do think that it gives off a kind of vibe, a unique vibe of just sitting on the dock with a fishing pole in hand and just reflecting on life. And I think that that's something really great. And yeah, sure, there's not that much lyrically, but because of the way that the production is formed and how each song transitions into each other, I do think that it's not so much about having great music, but instead a bunch of shorter musical ideas that clump together and form into this greater whole. There's also a funny moment during this album, which I won't spoil, but let's just say it caught me off guard. And I do think that songs like You're Cute and Don't Leave Me This Way are really, really great. You'll probably need to keep up with the time, because the next one on this list is Like Clockwork by Queens of the Stone Age. I don't know how to say this other than saying that this is probably one of the best rock albums that you will ever listen to. It is honestly just amazing. Lyrically, guitar work is fantastic. I love how each song has a great theme and it all connects into greater whole. I do enjoy tying back to the ocean a lot, like in the song I Sat by the Ocean and Smooth Sailing. Other highlights that I like to point out are Calopsia and also If I Had a Tail. And I do think that this album has almost no weak songs. I do think that some are stronger than others, but they're all generally good. And if you like rock, this is definitely an album for you. Passing the torch off from that is Torches by Foster the People. This may be quite a shock to some of you, because I think that a lot of people just think of this album as nothing, because people just know the one song from it, Pumped Up Kicks, and yeah, it's a great song, but I do think that this album is definitely something worth listening to. This album is in no way supposed to be higher art, but I do think that a lot of the hooks and a lot of the productions are quite creative, or at the very least, very catchy. Ba 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 da ba da ba. Don't stop talking about. And it's just so much fun, because I don't think that you'll listen to another album like this anytime soon. So this album is definitely worth listening to, especially if you like dancing, even though you're not really good at it. Alright, now it's time to wake up with Wake by Hail the Sun. I do think that this album is definitely different from a lot of the other picks because it's way more intense, aside from another one on this list, but I think that this is much more of a personal choice for me. I think that this album is actually very profound, you could say. I don't think that this is necessarily groundbreaking lyrics or instrumentation, but I do think that it's executed really well. I like the way that all the instruments seem to clash and the way that the vocal performance starts catching up and they start creating this orchestra. And this orchestra is sort of something that is just playing, and it's something that goes on in the head. And I like how some themes start to tie into each other as the songs progress, especially the way that Relax Divide connects with Disappearing Syndrome. And I do think that songs like Black Serotonin and Human Target Practice are some of my favorites. Next choice might seem kind of random, but I'm going to go with Daft Punk's Random Access Memories, and to me this is something that is just... it is a celebration of music, and when it came out in 2013, yes, I liked Get Lucky, and yes, it could be overplayed, but let's just be honest, it's a good song. But what really got me hooked was a lot of the themes about just celebrating and loving music and paying tribute, especially with the two openings. The two opening tracks, which are Give Life Back to Music and Giorgio. And I do think that those two songs are some really good bangers. But Giorgio focuses more on a narrative. And the way that the song is written is sort of just listening to the story about how the synthesizer starts off like a heartbeat and it just starts adding layers, and by the end it's just a heartbeat. And it's just, that's what music is. It's putting your heart into it, and that's what the story also relates to, and that's my interpretation of it. And it's definitely one of my favorite songs from the album. But let's be honest, Instant Crush, honestly one of the best songs ever made by Julian, and I think that every song is done well. And I know that some people may be put off because, oh look, it's Daft Punk, but they're putting in more traditional instrumentation. But there are songs like Game of Love and, just like I said, Giorgio, which really help pay tribute to what they're doing about house. Next choice might get you a bit emotional, but it's Emotion by Carly Rae Jepsen, and it is so annoying to me that everyone keeps saying, Carly Rae Jepsen, isn't that the Call Me Maybe girl? Sometimes they put in, oh, I kinda know Good Time and I know I Really Like You, which is from this album, by the way. But she is so much more than the Call Me Maybe girl. Like, this album is just one of the best pop albums, in my opinion, for the decade. I'm sorry, I meant it's a fact. And I think that when you listen to this, especially with Run Away With Me, which is such a banger of an opening track, it's probably one of the best pop songs I've ever listened to, period. And to be honest, I think that if you told me that your favorite track from this album was Your Type, or Gimme Love, or Boy Problems, or even Emotion, the title track itself, I wouldn't be surprised, especially with Emotion, because there is such good production on it. And it's amazing how the lyrics on this project really help make you feel like you are experiencing that honeymoon, that, oh my gosh, I can't wait to fall in love, and oh no, my heart's broken, love is all there is. She's painting the picture of love with a great 80s backdrop, and it is a must listen. Please, if you like pop, you owe it to yourself to give Carly another chance. And Dedicated. Growing up, I wasn't a big fan of the Indonesian music industry. Not necessarily Indonesian artists. Of course, I have nothing wrong with them. And even today, I enjoy Ardhito Pramono, I enjoy Nikki, Rich Brian, but I don't know. I think that because of the way that the industry is set up, a lot of the times Indonesian artists usually have a hard time expressing themselves, actually experimenting. Sometimes the industry would make it so hard that basically most of the songs are just about heartbreak or just about falling in love, which are the two genres in Indonesian music. But for some reason, this album kind of put a spell on me. And that's Mantra Mantra by Kunto Aji. And to be honest, listening to this album, I feel like it's a step in the right direction, because seeing an album like this become successful and having such personal themes instead of just saya merasa sakit hati and it's just the same themes. I get so bored of it, and there's nothing wrong if you enjoy these heartbreak, these galau music, but it gets tiring, especially if the lyrics are all so similar. Songs like Topik Semalam and Jakarta are just really great for me, and I just love it. I love it. I honestly think that this is one of the more underrated Indonesian albums, and if you haven't listened to it, please give it a shot. The next one is quite legally something, because it's Blonde by Frank Ocean. You can call me predictable, you can call me whatever you want, but let's just be honest, this is such a great album, and to me, I think that Frank Ocean's story is just as intriguing as the album itself. Where can I even begin? The themes, the vibe, the instrumentation, the production, Beyonce's vocals on Pink and White. Oh my gosh, everything's so good. I enjoy everything. I don't even know where to start. I like Nike's, Ivy, Pink and White. I like using short monologues like Facebook Story, which really help add to the thematic weight of the album. I enjoy listening to soft and somber songs like Self Control. My goodness. And I also enjoy listening to most of the tracks. But to me, this is just what it is. I enjoy it, and it's just so good. If you're a spoiled brat, you won't like this next one, because You Won't Get What You Want by Daughters. You Won't Get What You Want by Daughters is probably the most unique album in this list, because it is not necessarily an album that you just listen to on the radio. It's definitely not an album that you just play while you're going to the gym. Unless that's your thing, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's definitely not that kind of album for most people, because people used to think that I was joking when I said that The Flammable Man is probably one of my favorite songs ever. It is such a good song. And yes, it's lyrically not as complex as a lot of the other songs, but it really speaks to me, and the way I interpret listening to it is about how quickly anxiety can just crawl up on you, and it starts slithering its way up, but it's not going out. It's just constantly telling yourself, I don't lie, I don't lie, I don't lie, and it's so good. And every song in this album is great. It's just great. There's nothing that I feel like is subpar. Every song on this album is just amazing. For me, it definitely took a while because I'm not used to this kind of music, and it really started to click with me as soon as I listened to The Flammable Man, as funny as that is, because it's definitely one of the least accessible songs on the album. And I think that this album is a great representation of not just necessarily mental illness, but just the state of mind in certain situations. It really depends on how you interpret it. I see this as something that represents how anxious things can be, how scary it can be in life, and yeah, that's not what a lot of people use music for. A lot of people use music just to have a good time, just to enjoy themselves, to get away from it all. But I do think that You Won't Get What You Want is not that kind of album. It's not just music, but instead it's more of an experience. It's something that you don't go into thinking this is gonna be some jams, but instead it's an experience. It's something that you go through, something that you interpret as art. If you think about something like Schindler's List and Click, you don't necessarily say you enjoy them for the same reasons, because you go to Click or like whatever movie for a good time, but movies like the Schindler's List, and in this case You Won't Get What You Want, are pieces of art that really make you feel things that aren't necessarily comfortable, and I don't think that music is always about exploring happy emotions or necessarily pleasant sounds. Sometimes the way that the instrumentation is used is to make you empathize or even just feel like you're going through what the person is feeling, and that's discomfort, and that's why I don't think that it's necessarily something that is normal. If you're into social studies, then this next album might not be for you, because Anti-Socialites by Alvvays is just something that is just amazing. To me, Alvvays is sort of a unique band because unlike many of the other artists on this list, there is no song that I don't like by Alvvays. And I can't really say that for any other artist. And to be honest, they only have 2 albums, and it was such a hard choice to choose between Anti-Socialites and their self-titled album, but I decided to go with Anti-Socialites because I think that it's definitely more accessible for other people, even though I love both of them the same, and I didn't want to repeat an artist, take up 2 slots for Alvvays like that. That wouldn't be a great list to show, but Anti-Socialites is definitely a great album. I think that Molly Rankins is honestly just a great lyricist. I think that her vocal performance is definitely very unique, and it conveys a sort of girliness to it that is very unique to Molly, and I can't really find that in other Jangle pops. And Alvvays is sort of the band for Jangle pop for me. Like, to me, if I want to listen to Jangle pop, I go to Alvvays. And also, fun fact for people who already know this, but there is an Anti-Socialite side B. And the funny thing is that I actually started knowing about Alvvays when a friend recommended it to me, and I said, wow, Archie Marry Me has such a disappointing hook, and I really regret saying that because I didn't really think that much about the songs, because I came in expecting a sort of high energy song, but instead this is something that I just listen to every day in the car, when I'm working, when I just want to have a good time, because it is such a good vibe and all the songs are great. I enjoy the instrumentation. I enjoy how each member of the band contribute in their own way to create this greater whole, and I feel like I'll always feel that way. Hey, congratulations on making it to the end of the video. So, obviously, this list was made in a way so that it's not necessarily what I think are the best albums, but definitely the ones that left an impact on me and represent my different music tastes throughout the decade. Obviously, I didn't listen to every album of the decade, so I just started listening to A Moon-Shaped Pool, and obviously it is... But it would seem disingenuous to put it on the list, so I chose not to include it. And albums like To Pimp a Butterfly, I enjoy a lot, but I don't think that it left the same kind of impression on me like a lot of the albums on this list did, even though I do think that To Pimp a Butterfly is masterfully crafted. Are you upset that one of your albums didn't make it on the list? Well, you can always check the description, because that's where I put the honorable mentions. And just a reminder for everyone, this is not my opinion, this is just objective fact. Deal with it. Dada.